Hi, my name is Jewel, and I'm so excited that you have decided to join me for the 75-minute Yin Yoga experience. I like to use lots of props for my Yin Yoga practice, so I'll give you a few moments to grab any props you might want today. I suggest having something like yoga blocks, maybe even boxes or big books that you have like textbooks, a strap, and you can use a belt, a bathrobe strap, anything that's wider than your wingspan. I have a bolster and a couple of blankets here. So you can use blankets, you can use pillows, you can use couch cushions, anything to support you that's soft enough to feel nice underneath you instead of hard and uncomfortable. So take a few moments and gather any props that you would like. They're not necessary, but they would make your practice a little bit softer and a little easier to let go. So take a moment and get your props, and then you can meet me laying on your back in a comfortable supine position. This practice has a lot to do with letting go. So we do want to be in a comfortable environment, in comfortable clothing that we can relax in. That is not to say that you can't be in a warm or cold room if that is your preference, but we do want this to be a neutral experience so we can create our own experience internally. So once you've gotten your props situated, we can leave them off the mat just for some later use, and we'll come to lie on the back together. You can lay flat on the back, or you can have your head on one of your props or pillows, and we'll plant the feet on the ground and let the knees knock in together. This might feel good on the low back as a little low back release, but if you prefer a hip opener to start, you can walk the feet in together and then let the knees knock out. Perhaps you put blocks or blankets underneath the knees for support so they're not just hanging out there. So find that comfortable position for you. We'll let the head face upwards towards the ceiling. Start to let the neck grow a little bit, rolling the shoulders away from the ears, and let the hands fall wherever's comfortable. So maybe that's laying on the ground, palms facing up or down, maybe palms connected to the body. And wherever you are, we'll just start landing. Start welcoming yourself to your yoga practice and welcoming yourself to your yoga mat. Find a little sense of gratitude for the fact that you've carved out this 75 minutes for your body, for your mind, and for your breath. Yin Yoga is a beautiful letting go practice that brings us quite a lot of grounding and opening throughout the body and mind. Essentially, we can use Yin Yoga to create space where there wasn't space before. In a typical active yoga class, maybe vinyasa or hatha, we would be focusing on strengthening and putting tension for stretching on the muscles specifically. Yin Yoga is a little bit different. We bring our intention to the plastic tissues known as the yin tissues of the body. That means we're putting intention and pressure physically and mentally on the bones and tendons and ligaments and the joints that hold our muscles and support our muscles. So this practice is very sensational. We are aiming for deep stretch, for deep, deep feeling within those joints. That is to say, if something does not feel good in your body that I recommend, please do not take it. They say we have an internal teacher that lives inside of our heart. So I ask that for your practice today, you listen to that internal teacher. You let your body take the shape that your internal teacher is guiding you towards instead of only my suggestions. We'll start to ground into the earth, letting our body just take shape of the mat. Maybe you start to get 10% more comfortable by fidgeting and moving in any way that feels good, settling every inch of your body into a comfortable spot. If you're sensing a part of your body that's holding tension, sometimes that's the shoulders, the jaw, the toes, maybe the knees, send a little breath and send a little gratitude and ask that body part to simply just relax and to be for the next few moments as we take our grounding portion. We'll let the hands now connect with the body in some way. Maybe one hand on the belly, one on the chest, but whatever feels natural, perhaps the legs or the rib cage. We'll start a breathing practice to bring intention and openness into the body before we begin any yin poses. This will serve as a body scan for us to check in with how maybe the joints are already feeling before our yin practice and how the quality of the breath might be impacting our body today. We'll start just with the belly here. Maybe you place both hands on the belly for some physical connection to yourself. And we'll inhale, aiming to let the breath fill the belly, just like a balloon rising. Maybe you feel the belly button start to rise. And then on the exhale, we'll let the belly button drop, descending down towards the spine and towards the ground. We'll do that twice more, just in the belly. We'll let the belly rise, sending all of our air into the abdomen, the lower belly. And then exhale, let that air out of yourself and let the belly descend down. One more time, just through the belly. Inhale, feel that balloon. Maybe you picture your favorite color filling you up. Exhale, feel the belly drop. We'll come back to normal breath, just for a couple of breaths in between our parts here. And we'll move that intention from our belly to our rib cage. So we'll invite that air through the rib cage. So let's place our hands right on our ribs. And on our inhale, you might feel your ribs start to expand just a bit. As you exhale, imagine your ribs knitting in towards one another, closing up, letting that air descend. Twice more just through the rib cage. Inhale, feeling the rib cage expand, that place between the belly and chest. Exhale, feel the ribs knit back towards one another super slowly. One more inhale through the rib cage. Feel the ribs expand. Exhale, feel the ribs knit back in. Let them settle. Good. Come back to normal breath for a couple rounds of breathing. And now we'll invite that breath into the chest. So instead of breathing through the bottom part or the middle of our torso, we'll let that air start to raise our collarbones, raise our chest. So let your exhale release the air, and we'll take 3 breaths through the chest. Inhale, feeling the chest rise, feeling the collarbones maybe expand slightly. Exhale, feel the chest lower. Maybe you place your hands on your chest to feel that lowering. 2 more. Inhale through the chest, feel it rise, rising towards the face and the ceiling. Exhale, descends the chest, letting your air out. 1 more here. Inhale, letting the chest rise. Exhale, feel the chest drop. Great. So we'll come back to normal breath once again. And I want you to tune in. Maybe close your eyes, place a hand on a part of your body and the other hand on another part. And just notice where today Your breath is culminating. Do you sense yourself breathing primarily through the belly, through the rib cage, or through the chest today? Once you take note of where that breath is automatically being sensed on your inhales, let's combine those three parts into what's called the three-part breath of Dirga Swasam. In this three-part breath, we'll begin by inviting the air into our belly. And without exhaling, we'll invite that air into the rib cage and then all the way up to the chest. On the exhale, we'll reverse that exhale as the air leaves our body. First, the chest will empty, then the rib cage, then the belly. If this is new to you and at any point you feel a little dizzy during the practice, just come back to normal breath. It can be a lot more air and a lot more oxygen than you might be used to with your natural breathing patterns. So let's try this together. We'll do it 5 times in total. And you don't have to go on my cue. You can take your own inhales and exhales, but we'll make sure that the exhales are as long or longer than the inhales to emphasize the grounding power of this breath. So we'll take our exhale, let all of the air out, and we'll begin our Dirga Swasam three-part breath. Inhale through the belly, rise to rib cage, rise to chest. Exhale, chest, rib cage, and belly. Pause at the bottom. Inhale, belly, rib cage, chest. Maybe pause at the top. Exhale, chest, rib cage, belly. Let's try to slow it down just a bit. Inhale, belly, rib cage, chest, descend, chest, rib cage, belly. Good. We'll do this 2 more times. Inhale, belly, rib cage, and chest. Descend the breath, chest, rib cage, and belly. One more time, maybe slow it down a little more. Inhale through the belly, rib cage, chest. Pause at the top. Exhale, chest, rib cage, and belly. If this feels good, continue this breath. Otherwise, we'll come back to normal breathing. Roll the shoulders away from the ears, give the toes a little wiggle, and we'll relax in this place that we created of space, of opening, of depth. We'll be practicing a grounding yin practice where I am here in late September in Philadelphia. The fall is starting to replace the summer. It's very obvious. The temperature outside is dropping. The winds are picking up. Often this change of season can bring about an easier way to feel unbalanced and maybe some feelings of instability or lack of grounding. Once we take that fire element away from the seasonal change as summer starts to leave, we invite more air element into the fall as the winds start coming about. These winds can bring us up into the air and almost wipe us off of our feet. So it's very important during this transition, especially from summer to fall, to invite some grounding yoga practices through breath work, such as Dirga Swasam, and through yin poses. So for our first yin pose, we'll roll onto either side that feels natural and make our way up to tabletop to enter child's pose as our first posture. I like to invite some blocks and blankets into this practice, feeling free to put a bolster or a blanket underneath the hips on top of the heels, and a block or two underneath the chest and or the forehead. We'll take a moment and set up in this pose, letting the heart just melt into the ground, letting the forehead connect with something on the earth or on a block. I'll take my timer here and we'll be here for a couple of minutes in our first yin pose. Letting the fingers start to settle, letting the head and the space between the eyebrows begin to settle, and letting the hips rock back towards the heels. Child's pose allows us to turn inward, to have an introspective experience with ourselves, for ourselves, about ourselves. Yin Yoga has 3 principles in which we will try to practice in every single posture we take today. The first principle is come to your place of edge. This means we want sensation around 60 to 70%. They say yin is the class. It's okay to get a 70% in. You're not reaching for 100. We're reaching for that place of sensation with no pain or no tingling or overbearing on the joints. After we find that edge, that place that maybe finds a little discomfort, but it's nourishing, and we feel like we can genuinely stay for a couple of minutes. The second principle of yin is to find stillness, to commit to stillness, to not hold on with the muscles, but to let go as much as gravity will let us and as much as our props and the pose will allow. After we find that stillness, the third principle is to stay a while, to stay in that stillness, to stay at that edge. We're about halfway through our child's pose. So if you'd like to go a little deeper or come out of the pose by maybe taking away a prop or adding a prop, please do now for our few remaining breaths. As you send that breath into the hips, into the neck, into the shoulders, wherever you'd like to place your intention for this practice, give that body part a little bit of gratitude. Yoga allows us to find breath and to focus our intention while in a shape that might be uncomfortable or a challenge. So ask yourself to commit to these breaths, to keep breathing, keep the energy flowing, even if the body finds a little bit of discomfort in it. We'll take 2 more breaths here in our first yin pose. And when you're ready, we'll press into our hands and use the strength of our arms to come to a seat, moving the props out of the way just for now. And we'll find our way to sit on our glutes. We'll take butterfly pose as our next pose, taking our time between poses as always, letting the feet come together as far away or as close as comfortable. I'll be taking blankets underneath my knees here so my knees can rest on something instead of hang out just in the air. Folding these blankets a couple of times to make what I call little bubbles. And then I'll be using my blocks to create a little tower here, a little structure, skyscrapers or just like any block. And then rest my forehead right on this little tower I created. So we're finding this ability to let go here, to tune inward, to gaze down. Take your time, take a couple of fidgets before committing to that stillness once again. Stillness is such a big part of Yin Yoga because it allows us to let go. Once our muscles stop moving, stop twitching, stop fidgeting, the joints can begin to bear that tension that we're intentionally placing on them. Another aspect of letting go is absolutely mental here in Yin Yoga. This mental aspect of letting go encourages us to keep breathing, to not create a story around the breath, but to sit with that discomfort that we're creating. This helps us off the mat by letting go when things get stressful, by not holding on to extra stories or extra judgment that we feel might be completely natural. Though these things hold us down, they get in our way, and they start to cloud our outlook and our judgment. We're about halfway through. If you'd like to take away a prop or maybe readjust by adding a prop, take a full inhale and exhale into the remainder of this butterfly pose. Take about 5 more breaths, letting the inhales and exhales get a little bit longer each time. Letting the exhales even be a little bit longer than the inhales to encourage relaxation, slowing down the heart rate. We'll slowly start to come out of this, walking our torso up and removing our props from underneath us. We'll take a counter pose of some windshield wipers, planting the hands behind us in any way that's comfy and planting both feet in front of us. We'll rock the knees side to side as a counter pose for that hip opener. Maybe pausing or going slow, like you're moving through honey. to feel some relief in those body parts that definitely were feeling that compression and that tension. From here, we'll come to our back once again, letting ourselves find our way flat on the earth and props somewhere close to us in case we'd like them. We'll lay flat on the ground for a couple of moments here, just sensing any sensations or any feedback from the body. Taking a little bit of a mental body scan, letting ourselves release, just like you're made of water, into the earth, beginning to feel the ground, connecting with the ground, knowing that you're being held and supported. Plant the feet onto the earth, just like we'd be setting up for a bridge pose, and we'll set up for a supine twist. We'll lift the hips and bring them to the left side of the mat. Invite the knees into the chest. I like to grab my blanket here and place it right between my knees. We'll let the knees fall over towards the right, maybe placing another blanket underneath the legs, maybe placing a blanket underneath the left shoulder for some support. Maybe a blanket under the head, maybe a blanket on top of you. But wherever your body is leading you, find that comfort, find that ability to find stillness for a few minutes. Let the head maybe face all directions, and then find what's most comfortable for you. Perhaps gazing past the left shoulder, maybe gazing upward towards the sky, or even looking in the same direction as the knees. We'll be here for a few minutes, so I'll invite a visualization practice for this yin posture of supine twist. On your inhales, imagine your vertebrae, those bones in your spine, just begin to lengthen, getting longer and further away from one another every inhale. On your exhale, imagine that length that you created, encouraging you to twist a little deeper every exhale. I'll leave you to some silence, but before I do so, check in with the right hip and check in with the left hip. Maybe you give them a little wiggle or wag and ask them to relax. They don't have a responsibility at this time. Continue to breathe. Continue to lengthen. And continue to let go. We're about halfway through. If you'd like to take away or move any props, maybe you'd like to open your wingspan or change positions of the neck. Do so with as little movement as possible and come back to that stillness. Take 3 of the slowest breaths that you've taken today and fully feel the release on the exhale into the mat, into the earth. We encourage the sense of grounding by being held, being nurtured by the earth element. Super slowly, like you're moving through molasses. We'll roll back onto the back, release the props to either side of you for now, and we'll plant the feet once again. Bring both hands to each hip respectively and just take a little inventory of anything you're feeling on one or either side of your body. We'll keep the feet planted, lift the hips and move them over to the right side of your mat. Invite the knees into your chest. If you'd like to bring that blanket in between the knees once again, you can do so now. And then we'll rock the knees over to the left side. Take a few moments here. Just because you land right into a posture does not mean that you have to stay there for the remainder of the shape. You want to fidget and move to get a sense of where your body will get the most impact from this yin practice. So shift your shoulders, shift your head, shift your knees in any way that feels good. Place any pillows or blocks in between or underneath you. And then we'll find that stillness. We want to find a place that is an edge that does feel sensational, but feels nourishing and like we could stay there for a few minutes. Let that stillness start to settle into the body. Maybe it feels different than the opposite side, and that's completely okay. Take a full inhale to find that length. As you exhale, commit to that stillness to stay a while, releasing fully into the ground. Maybe your bones start to feel a little bit heavier. Maybe you wiggle the fingers every so often if they're prone to catching tension. As you inhale and exhale, can you imagine that 3-part breath? Inhaling all the way from the depths of your lungs and your diaphragm and filling up entirely. Can you bring it even a step further and imagine every single cell breathing in? Not only restricted to the diaphragm or the torso, but air and life force and prana truly does enter us through every single pore and every single cell. Can you imagine maybe your favorite color in the form of air and prana filling you up in every direction, sensing a feeling of radiant life force all around you and in you. And on that exhale, can you release whatever you don't need, whether it's physical tension or a mental fluctuation? Let it release. Let it be emptied. Let it be taken by the earth as you find your centered grounding. If you'd like to take away any props or move your body in any way, please do so. And now we'll count our breath. Inhale for 5, exhale for 4, and so on. Once you get to 0, just start over. But go slow. Challenge yourself to slow down. And back to the normal breath. You can stop counting and we'll slowly, like you just woke up from 100 years of napping, roll back onto the back. We'll invite both knees into the chest and just give ourselves a hug here in this little ball. This grounding posture of turning into ourselves and facing ourselves is known to help us if we're experiencing stress or anxiety by the comfort of your own skin, your own warmth, your own energy. We'll take one hand to each knee respectively and we'll open them up. Just sensing a bit of opening here in the inner thighs and the groin, and inviting a sense of vulnerability. We created this space between our legs. As we've been focusing a lot on the legs so far, as they are what holds us and tethers us to the ground, check in mentally with any mental fluctuations or any emotions that may have popped up once we opened this space. If it feels good to rock side to side as a little bit of a counter, please do. We'll roll onto either side just for transition and pause in fetal position for a moment. Making a little pillow for your head with your bicep, maybe bringing one hand to the heart. Looking inward, connecting with your senses. Maybe you follow a distant sound, coming to closer sounds, maybe even sounds within this room or your body. Following any smells you might smell, maybe the taste in your own mouth, the sense of touch, what you can feel, your clothing, your eyelids, your hair, and then your sense of sight. Perhaps what you see in the room, or perhaps what you see behind your closed eyelids. We'll take an inhale, exhale to release. Let that sensory observation go as we enter our next yin pose, rolling all the way to the belly this time. Doesn't matter which direction you're facing, we'll find Sphinx pose. I like to have a block for my Sphinx pose here. So if you'd like to bring a block, we can use this together. We'll place the block on its highest way it can stand, like a little skyscraper here. And we'll bring the elbows right underneath the shoulders. The fingers can start spreading wide. The toes are about hips distance, pointing back behind you. Our toenails and shoelaces grounded to the earth. We'll start in this proud Sphinx by releasing the shoulders away from the ears, pointing the toes back behind us, and bringing a little bit of traction through the elbows as if we were pulling the elbows back, trying to scoot the chest through the forearm. we'll find a sense of lengthening and strengthening in the back. You will feel like you're doing work here. Let the crown of the head lift as the pelvis grounds into the earth. Maybe your hip points feel like they're anchors into the ground. And if this feels good on the back, if this feels lengthening and strengthening and a nice stretch, feel free to stay here. Otherwise, we'll start to bow the head, releasing the head onto a block. This might feel good on the neck and on the shoulders, but please take your time, adjust and fidget just a bit to find that place of your edge. The shoulders aren't going to become earrings rising up towards the ears when we want to use just enough action to keep them long and away from the ears with a long regal neck. We'll be here for a couple of minutes. And if this pose at any point becomes uncomfortable for you, you can remove the block, release the chest to the ground, and come to lie on the belly. As we're gazing down towards the earth, we can keep in mind that we are made of yin and yang energies in constant interaction. Despite the fact that we are practicing Yin Yoga at the moment, there's always a combination of both. You can't have one without the other. Yin energy is said to come from the earth, come from the nourishment of the ground, as yang energy is said to come from the sky. Our body is also consisted and made of yin and yang energies. The front of our body is yin, and the back of our body is yang. So in Sphinx pose, in any heart opener, the source of yin, the ground, is being faced by the source of yin in our body, the front of our body. We can find this as a true cosmic connection to invite yin and yang into our body to begin to balance our energies. We have about 1 more minute in this pose, feeling ready to release, feeling tension, feeling sensation. Take about 3 more breaths, letting them be slow, long, deep, and complete. Maybe you start to slowly lift the head, letting the crown of the head face the ceiling once again, letting the head be regal, like a sphinx, like a royal sphinx. Spread the fingers wide, press the elbows into the ground to lift the chest. We'll remove the block and lay all the way flat on the earth. You can make a pillow with your hands for your forehead or lay one cheek to the mat, whichever you prefer. We'll wag the tail a couple of times. If it feels good to bend the knees and windshield wiper, please do. And we'll take a small child's pose just for counter. Pressing the hands into the earth with the strength of your arms, press up to tabletop and rock the hips back into child's pose. We can keep the knees touching this time just for a slow, low back release, letting the forehead connect with the ground, and just take a couple of breaths as you invite lengthening into the spine, pressing the hips back towards the heels on the exhale. If this feels good, stay here for a moment. And you'll meet me in a seated position for our next posture. I like to sit on a blanket for this pose as it is a full forward folding pose. I'll fold the blanket so it's about an inch thick or so. You can always fold it more for some more height. I'll place my hips right on the blanket and I'll find my sit bones here. You can reach underneath you and just find those pointy bones in your body and let them face directly down. Maybe you rock forward and back a couple of times and find that place where your sit bones are rooted into the earth. We'll find our grounding. I'll take my next blanket here and I'll roll it up into a long roll. And we can always make this bigger, putting two blankets and rolling them together. And we can make it smaller by just using a half roll here. So we'll start with maybe a 3/4 roll and I'll place my knees right on top of the big bulgy part. So we're finding caterpillar pose here, a deep forward fold. I like to have a blanket underneath me so I don't hyperextend my knees, but this blanket's not necessary. From here, I'll take my blocks and I'll start stacking them up onto my legs here so my forehead has something to rest on. Actually, I'm going to take my bolster because it's softer. So having something nice and soft to rest on is a really good place to be. These props are fantastic to have for any practice. If you do have a bolster, you can let the bolster find a slant, maybe even on top of the blocks. So you can rest not only your forehead, but also your chest. So we'll start to slowly crawl ourselves forward, letting our toes just relax and releasing our forehead onto the props beneath us. You can hug your prop, maybe interlace the fingers. You can release the hands behind you to plant onto the earth. And this is your own pose here. So let this be yours. Let this be a pose that feels good. And we will be here for a bit. So let yourself completely release into this posture. Maybe wiggling the hips back and forth, shaking the head no or yes, and knowing that this is quite an intense pose. So that first principle of yin is to find our edge, that place of discomfort and nourishment, that place that is not pain, it is not tingling, it is not worrying that you might injure yourself. You want a space of total and complete release where we feel held. Commit to that stillness once you've found that edge, and commit to staying a while. You're doing a lot of forward folds to encourage looking inward, falling inward, if you will, to face ourselves and to ground ourselves. Every inhale, imagine length, and every exhale, let yourself release and surrender into the pose. Maybe you turn your attention inward and start to notice where this pose impacts you. Just follow the sensations you feel through the body on a little journey of sensation. We're about halfway through. So if you'd like to take a block or a bolster in a different position, to go a little deeper, to come out a little bit, let yourself make those moves. And slowly, as you made those changes, release back to your prop for the next couple minutes. Take a full inhale, release out the mouth. Let the pose feel good. Take 5 more slow inhales and exhales. Maybe pausing at the top of the inhale and the bottom of the exhale, telling yourself you're safe, even if there's no air in your body for a moment. After your next exhale, we'll slowly come out of this one, taking our time, releasing the chest to come up to straighten, letting the props make their way off to the side for later. We'll take our feet to the ground and start setting up for our next pose. A couple of minutes on each side for a nice hip release. We'll take shoelace pose, bending the right knee and placing the shin and leg on the ground so the knee points forward. We'll then take the left leg and place the knee somewhere on top of the right. It can be a loose shoelace with a block or a blanket underneath this left knee, or it can be a tight shoelace, aiming for the knees stacked on top of one another. Letting our torso stand up straight. I'm still sitting on my blanket, so you can always bring a prop underneath you to let your hips rise a little bit. And we'll take that structure of support again. For me, this time, I'll take 2 blocks on their highest setting, and I'll place my bolster right on top of it, kind of like a Stonehenge structure. I'll take my arms right on top of this bolster, release my head down on top of the soft structure, and try to find that place of my edge so I can enter stillness. If it's too intense, I encourage you to loosen up the shoelace a bit. But if you know you're not feeling much sensation, you can get yourself a little more sensation by bringing the left knee more directly on top of the right. We'll be here for a slight shorter time, but still enough time to find that stillness and to stay a while. Releasing the head down, hinging forward slightly at the hip, sending our breath into that left hip. Wherever you feel the fruits of this pose, intentionally send your breath there. If at any point you do feel tingling or numbness, just come out of the pose a little bit. Don't push yourself through. Let the shoulders relax. Wiggle the toes if they have tension. We're about halfway through. If you'd like to crawl a little more forward on your bolster, releasing the forehead or releasing the arms all the way forward to find more of a forward fold, finding that comfortable position of deep sensation before more deep. Slowly and very slowly, intentionally come out of this pose, noticing any sensation or feedback your body has to offer. I'll remove my props just so you can see my transition, but you can leave yours there. We'll take the feet back to finding planted on the earth. And if you'd like a little release, a little counter pose, we can bring those windshield wipers back. Maybe we'll pause with the knees facing the right to give this left leg a little release from all of that work, that tension it was under. And this time we'll slide the left knee to face forward, leg on the ground, and slide the right leg over it. Again, this can be a loose shoelace. Maybe you place a block underneath the right knee for support, or maybe you tighten that shoelace. And both sides will look different. So it's okay if they feel different. Our body is not symmetrical, and our practice doesn't have to be either. We'll make our little structure where you can just stack up as many blocks as you'd like, or take the soft bolster on top. We'll start to fold forward, noticing what's happening as you go down and taking your time to release, not forcing the body down, not releasing in ways that don't feel good. And we'll start to let the head relax, maybe onto the hands or onto the bolster. And we'll be here for a few minutes, sending your breath to that right hip, sending your gratitude to your legs that hold you, connecting with the intention of finding grounding. We're about halfway through. If you'd like to release maybe a little farther or come a little bit out for the remainder of the pose, letting yourself settle, maybe imagining your heart melting into the floor, releasing tension from the neck or the shoulders if they created any tension. Maybe letting out a nice sigh, letting it feel good, letting your air fall back to the earth. Take 3 more breaths as maybe you hinge the hips just to invite some last bit of tension into the joints. And we'll slowly come back up. If you do sense a little dizziness on the way up, just let yourself know it's okay. Maybe you close the eyes and take a couple breaths in a seated position. But folding forward and sitting back up sometimes can cause this. We'll just take it real easy and always lay down if you feel that way. We'll start to set up for our final rest here. If you like traditional Shavasana, we can lay flat on the ground. First, we'll take our counter pose, letting our feet come to the earth and rocking side to side. I will be offering a heart opener for Shavasana today. Maybe you pause when the knees are at the left. Since we did a lot of forward folding, we did a lot of internal work, folding inward. We can invite a little bit of extension into the heart, into the hip flexors. So if you would like to take this heart opener, and you can take this for just a few moments and then release into a flat Shavasana. We'll start with both of our blocks. We'll take one block on its medium setting and one block a couple inches behind that on its highest setting. You can place your bolster right up against it, just like a little ramp. I'll sit my hips against this bolster, right up against it. And I'll release my back onto the bolster. If you're super tall and you'd like a pillow underneath your head, if your head is off the bolster, you can find a blanket or a pillow right on top. So slowly descending the body onto the bolster, you can release the feet out long. You can take the feet to touch in the middle of the mat and open the knees out like we've done for butterfly, placing blocks or blankets underneath you if you want that extra hip relief. If you'd simply like to extend the legs for a little bit of a heart opener, keeping the legs straight, letting the energy flow, we can release the hands to either side, open the chest wide, and we'll start to relax, start to drop in. We'll take a deep inhale. Maybe you notice where that breath is going, the belly, the rib cage, or the chest. And a deep exhale. Start to wiggle the fingers. Let any wiggles out, any tension out. We'll make a fist with both hands. Open the fist wide like the sunshine. And then let the hands come to their natural curl. We'll let the toes rock out and let the toes come in towards one another. And then let the feet fall however is natural for them. We'll flex and point the toes a couple of times just to release any stagnant energy. And then let the toes find their natural place of being. We'll rock the head to the right, rock the head to the left, and then find center, finding that place where your neck feels long and regal and your head feels balanced. We'll start to notice the qualities of the breath, the coolness of the inhale in, the warmth, of the exhale out. We'll open the mouth, open the jaw, move the bottom jaw side to side to release the tension there. And then softly shut the mouth. Maybe the lips touch. Maybe there's a little space between the lips. Let the tongue settle somewhere between the teeth, neither pressing up or down onto the mouth. Wiggle the nose, let the nose relax. Lift the eyebrows, furrow the eyebrows like you're angry, and then let the eyebrows relax. Open the eyes wide, shift the eyeballs from left to right, to up, to down. If that felt good, maybe you do it again, bringing full circles clockwise and full circles counterclockwise. And then shutting the eyes gently, letting the eyelids relax. Focusing on that space between the eyebrows, our seat of intuition, our inner wisdom. Imagine that space between the eyebrows is a screen, a movie screen as high and as wide as the eyes can see. Imagine before you a black movie screen. Maybe some patterns or shapes or items pop up on that screen. And just take note of the movie playing in front of you. This is the manifestation of your consciousness. This is what is happening behind your seat of wisdom. So follow those images, acknowledge those images, and then let go of the images, letting them release. Just like our practice of Yin Yoga lets us physically release, this visualization of our mind's eye can help us practice mental release. Let that screen go black once again. We'll take a final inhale together, preparing for Shavasana. Exhale fully, letting your body settle into your prop, settle onto the mat if that's where you are, into Shavasana. If you're prone to a lot of mental activity here in our final rest, invite the mantra so hum. So meaning I, hum meaning am. So hum, I am. Rest here for a few minutes. I'll bring you back soon. Finding comfort in your Shavasana, knowing you can come down off these props at any point if that's what you would prefer. Start to bring awareness back into the body by inviting little or big movements and deepening the breath, bringing awareness to the breath body. If you'd like to end your practice here and you're comfortable, just stay. Otherwise, we'll slowly roll off of our props carefully and onto either side, letting the knees tuck in towards the chest into a fetal position. Making a pillow for your head with an arm, placing one hand on the heart. Recognize that fetal position is an opportunity for new beginnings and rebirth. Look inward and give yourself a genuine compliment, one you can take with you the rest of the day. Press yourself up to an easy seat, maybe sitting on props or the ground, and bring the hands to heart center, connected, each finger pad pressing gently against one another. Press the thumbs gently into the sternum and let the elbows come out wide, rolling the shoulders back and down, standing up straight, growing the crown of your head tall. We'll take 2 inhales here together. Inhaling through the belly, the rib cage, and the chest. Exhaling, chest, rib cage, and belly. One more slowly. Inhale, belly, rib cage, and chest. Exhale, chest, rib cage, and belly. Come back to normal breath. Draw the prayer to the forehead as a reminder to live in clear, loving thought. The prayer to the lips as a reminder for clear, loving communication. And the prayer back to the heart as a reminder of clear, loving action. Draw the prayer back to the forehead and bow to yourself as an act of self-reverence and self-gratitude. Thank you for joining me for this beautiful yin practice, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.